Banjir di pantai timur khususnya di Terengganu dan kawasan sini adalah kawasan air dan potensi evakuasi dari mencapai Hydroelectric juga ada pintu air yang diadakan di kawasan pada 1970 ketika proses penyediaan air di Terengganu dan tidak mengarahkan mencapai Banjir Malaysia tersebut dilakukan penyesuaian.
Today I gather you all here again is to discuss the environmental impact assessment of the Terengganu hydroelectric project. And what can we do to solve the problem? So, shall we start now?
Yeah.
Can we have Mr. Cole to start us?
Okay, sure. So, good morning everyone. So, regarding the issue of the flood around Kenyir, so we found that it's because of the build-up of the hydroelectric dam. So I will further talk about the statement of need of why this power plant needed to be built on that. So,
hi everyone. So nowadays we know that the electricity demand has a growth among peoples that since our population is increasing, so the demand for the electricity is increasing. Therefore, there is a statement of need that why we need to build up a new energy resources which is renewable and sustainable and environmentally friendly. So now we are going to talk about the statement of need of building up this power plant. So for example, hydroelectricity is one of the power plant which is very environmental friendly as it is very utilized, it's secure, cost effective, and it minimizes the adverse effect towards the human and the environment. So this is why we need to have a new power plant. So first thing is that it needs to meet the peak power demand, and it needs to be a reliable fuel source, and it has to improve the power system security and reduce the carbon emission, which is beneficial to the environment and the human. So the peak power demand we will discuss in the next slide. So now we will discuss about this reliable fuel source. Reliable fuel source means that this power plant and this power supply needs to be readily and available, means that it is not subjected to the market volatility and availability, means it has to be consistently and always able to produce the power and energy to the supplement of the human. And the next thing is that it needs to improve the power system security by having a fast startup and the spinning reserve duty. So by that, it could always prevent the blackouts and having a backup plan to produce power to human when there is a peak demand. And the next thing is that it has to be environmental friendly, as now the pollution issue is very concerned by the people, and it is a must to figure out a plan to conduct out a environmental friendly power plant to produce a better power plant supply. So now we are going to further discuss about this peak power demand. So for this peak power demand, it is a combination of two things: the base load and the peaking power loads. So base load is actually conducted under a long duty cycle, which it has a constant load, means that it carry out the duty in the long hour of the day. So for example, this plant is the coal-fired steam plant and the gas-fired combined cycle plant. And for the peaking power load means that it only conduct like certain periods of the day, like a very short period. Like for example, it has a varying load and a very fast startup capability, means that it can warm up very fast. And for example of this power plant is the open cycle gas turbines and the hydroelectric power plant. So as a peaking power demand supply power plant, there is two choices between them, which is the open cycle gas turbine and the hydroelectric power plant. However, hydroelectric power plant is chosen over the open cycle gas turbine for this project. The reason why is because hydroelectric power plant is more reliable fuel source as it is always readily available. It does not depend on fuel and the cost of fuel. And by the way, it can reduce the carbon emission, which is more environmental friendly because it does not consume any fuel usage. So on the other hand, it also has a relatively low operation and maintenance cost because there is no cost of fuel, and it has a longer life than the fuel fire generation plant, and it also need a very low labor cost as it is an automated power plant.
Okay, so that's all for me today. Thank you for lending me your ears.
So I will be explaining about the geological structure of the project location and the construction. I will be explaining about the project, which include the project location, method of construction, and several other components of the project. The project is known as the Terengganu Hydroelectric project that involves the Puah Lake and the Tempat Lake. This project is proposed by the Tenaga Nasional Berhad for Terengganu region, and it is expected to have the capability to generate an industrial power up to 265 megawatts. This project plays an important role for the diversification of power in our country, and able to support national grid at the peak hour or when interruption occur with its hydroelectricity. The dam acts as both the power generation and the flood mitigation system, which is the ability to collect an additional amount of water during heavy raining season. The project is located north of the Kenyir Dam in Kuala Berang, Hulu Terengganu, Terengganu Darul Iman, and about 65 km west from Kuala Terengganu, 50 km from Bandar Gua Musang, Hulu Terengganu. This project is located at the Tempat Forest Reserve in Tasik Kenyir Hilir under the jurisdiction of Hulu Terengganu. Puah Lake and Tempat Lake will have an area of 6,979 hectares, about 18% of the Kenyir Lake, and 280 hectares, which is about 0.6% of the Kenyir Lake respectively. Both have a total number of one set of Kenyir Lake, and both of them will have their own water flow through the Kenyir Lake, which the flow of water from the Tempat Lake to the Puah Lake will generate the Tempat surface station with 15 megawatts and 250 megawatts for the water flow from Puah Lake to Kenyir Lake via the Puah underground station. Puah Dam will be constructed as the clear-core earth-fill dam with the foundation material of the dam site as well as the ability of super embankment material at the nearby borough area. The embankment dam with the central clear-core and earth-fill shoulder of the Puah Dam has the characteristic of the dam crest level of 299, 70 meters high above riverbank, crest width and length of 10 meters and 670 meters. It also expected to have a maximum flow level of 298.44. Spillway arrangement of the Puah Reservoir from upstream of the Puah Dam is consisting of a radial gate crest structure, a concrete line cube with an angular step and a flip bucket from where the flow is discharged into the plug pool, located 350 meters long channel aggregate in the left abutment, and deliver it to a natural riverbank approximately 1 kilometer downstream from the tooth of the Puah Dam. Provision has been made that the construction of the concrete end steel and 60 meter long, 48 meter wide butterfield and the concrete line channel at the downstream end of the plug pool, where the outfall channel is expected to be anchored in the rock. Tempat Dam will be constructed as a concrete gravity dam, designed and to be constructed for impounding and the diversion of flow from Sungai Tempat into Puah Reservoir via water transfer tunnel. The main feature of the Tempat Dam are the dam crest level of 426.2, 24 meters above the riverbank, maximum flow level of 426.2. The concrete gravity dam will have the 3 speedway of overflow section. The vertical upstream phase will be provided, except for the overflow section, where the upstream phase is partially stepped, and the sprout is to improve the hydraulic flow condition and to accommodate the diversion work during the construction period. The dam speedway has been sized to enable the safe passage of all flood events which may occur. The speedway comprises 3 bays of 10 meter keel weight, each bay controlled by 13 meter high hydraulically operated radial weight. The Hulu Terengganu water conveyance system consists of the Tempat Water Transfer Tunnel, a 988 meter long transfer tunnel with an intake and an outlet structure at the upstream and the downstream of the tunnel to convey the river flow of the Sungai Tempat in the Puah Reservoir. The water supply scheme will contribute approximately 25% of the flow available for the power generation at the Buzzer power station. The power indicator discharge of 94 m³ per second, 375 meter long power cube at the pressure start, and the terrace tunnel with the diameter of 8 meter and the length of the 1,180 meter. There is also the power station transformer, where it is in a separate chamber up to 90 meters upstream of the main chamber. The two chambers being connected to the two IPBs gallery, which will house the electrical bus conductor between the generating unit and their respective transformer. At the outlet structure, a 35-meter long partition wall divides the 8-meter dimension modified horseshoe tunnel section to reduce the weight of the stop block gate, which requires for a temporary isolation of the terrace tunnel for inspection and maintenance purpose. The construction of the project will be divided into two contracts, namely the preliminary civil work and the main associate work. In the first contract, the accessory to the significant feature of the project, such as the port dam site, power intake, and the main access tunnel portal, terrace outlet structure will be constructed and complete before the second contract commences. In addition, the work also will be including the application of the diversion approach channel, downstream channel, and the application of the temporary work area and the campsite. After establishment of the contractor camp and the necessary access route, it is expected that the contractor shall begin the work on the main civil and associate work contract, which include the construction of the port dam site, the civil speedway, including the converse dam, diversion facility, power facility, such as intake at the outlet structure, power tube, access tunnel, and the underground power station. This will require the surface and the subsurface application, laying earth and compaction, concrete work, and associated protection work. Several survey and construction of the access route to the Tempat water transfer scheme, followed by the construction of the Tempat dam, water intake at the outlet structure, and water transfer tunnel, will be also part of the main civil work. A newly constructed Kuala Berangguang Musang Highway passed in the course vicinity of the Terengganu HEP, thus greatly facilitating easy access to the project site. Access route will be constructed from the new highway to the respective location to provide and ensure access for the mobility and transportation of equipment and personnel, including the setting up of the facility of the project site for the main construction under the main civil contract. Under the second contract, additional access route will be constructed by extending the road element in the primary work to other areas. Due to the isolation of the site, all labor and supervision personnel will be accommodated at the site camp. As the construction period extends, all normal activity and service is expected at the long-term construction site will be provided. This area located where the water supply is equipped and access distance for all major work are relatively short. The station of this project consists of 3 underground spaces, which is the downstream surge chamber, transformer and power station. The turret execution should be advanced at the past procedure in order to reach the level of underground power station, as the aviation of the power station is critical construction activity. This camera will be evacuated from the top to bottom using the drill and blast method. The pre-speeding and control blasting method will be adopted to strip the camera wall as closely as possible at the design land, if we avoid construction of the rock, which would require installation of additional rock support and church. The project involves the construction of both temporary and permanent tunnel, which will require the conveyance of water or to access various underground installation of project. Some tunnel will be unlined, others will be concrete or steel line. Most tunnel will have nearly horizontal grade, but others will stick top or vertical. Most surface application work are required for the construction of the approach channel to river tunnel, headrace tunnel portal, terrace tunnel portal before the work on the tunnel itself is commenced. An appraisal of the nature of the resident soil for the sediment area close to the port dam was done, and the results showed that this could provide perfectly crop field. Thus, this area as well as the border field and allocated with the reservoir area. The deposit area at the disposal of the access rock and soil construction site, they should be located not too far from the construction activity to minimize the tapering. The contractor shall prepare and submit a pollution control plan to the supervising engineer at least 30 days before commencing work on site. It shall detail the area, method of working, drainage pad, seed injection device, surface treatment, and the lights including maintenance of such device and treatment at various stages of work. The quality of the influent discharge in the Sungai Terengganu and Sungai Tempat shall be in accordance with the standard received in the discharge license. The sedimentation pools will be allowed to the temperature of the detention of the drainage water pure to the discharge into the natural water course. The water in the pond shall be treated and discharged within 24 hours of water level in the pond reaching the discharge level. The pond shall be emptied only by discharge of the outlet pipes following treatment of the water resource. The split fence, the control shall be regularly clean, source and transport material from the behind of split fence and shall receive fence from damage by accumulation of the materials.
That's all from me. Thank you. Good morning. I'll be talking about the existing physical environment. So here we'll be talking about the existing physical environment of the study area. And the data collected from here will become the basis for assessing the impacts of the project on the environment. So we'll start with land use of this area, which is mainly forest, agriculture, aquaculture, settlement, resort and recreation, other tourist facilities, water bodies and associated facilities, dam and hydroelectric power station, road and bridges, and water pump house. Next, we'll be talking about geomorphology, where of this area, we want to know whether it is a volcanic or sedimentary contact zone and the soil characteristics around here. Then we'll go on the regional geology, where we want to know the structure of the land, seismic activity and whether it affects the design of the dam, and the reservoir-induced seismicity, because we're dealing with a lot of pressure when you have such a huge dam. So it will kind of affect the land in a way with its pressure. Then we will have the geology and geotechnical properties in the vicinity of Phwa Dam and associated structure, which also applies to Tambat Dam as well. Here we want to know the rock, the soil, the geological structure, the volcanic and sedimentary contact zone, and assessment on the reservoir itself. Here you can see that this is the roughly one of the technical stuff on geological part of these places, where you want to see the joint set and stuff. Then we will have geochemical exploration on the Sungai Tambat and Sungai Terengganu Mati, which are the bases of Phwa Dam and Tambat Dam. We want to know whether there's any mining values and stuff there before we build up the dam. Then we will have the soil characteristics of the Sungai Terengganu Mati and Sungai Tambat as well. We want to know what kind of soil exists there. And then we also would like to know the soil erosion there. And based on the soil erosivity index calculation and erodibility value, and also topography factors and vegetative cover to predict the rate of soil loss, so to come up with a soil conservation practice. We want it to be safe for the people before we build out the dam as well. Next, we have climate meteorology, and over here is the isophyto map. And then we want to know the general climate there overall, how it is. And then we want to know the rainfall and the evaporation rate there as well. Then we have surface water hydrology. This is the study area for modeling and simulation. And then here we have the drainage system, where we want to know the catchment, topography, general water resource, stream characteristic, estimated water balance, seasonal rainfall variability, stream discharge and the daily flow of the river before we build it up. So we know how much input are going into the dam. Then we have water quality here, where which part are being used as what, and then this is the interim national river quality standards for Malaysia, which is categorized into several classes here, and these classes are explaining what kind of usage are suitable for these classes based on the parameters given here. And then also we would like to know the physiochemical of the rivers, and we want to estimate the pollution, how much pollution is there already present before we build out the dam, and maybe we'll also continue up with the post monitoring on the pollution, whether there's any pollution there as well after we build out the dam. And then here we have air quality. These are the locations selected for monitoring ambient air quality. And then this over here is the Malaysian recommended air quality guidelines criteria, we should hit this so that it is safe for the people there when we build out the dam and stuff, to ensure that it is still safe for people to breathe there. And then here we have noise. Noise pollution is a rare a thing that people usually overlook, because only when it reaches very intense people will realize. Otherwise, they don't really register that this pollution is affecting us. But it's more on a psychological scale, on the mental, that it will be very annoying and it make you feel very agitated and irritated there.
And that's all from me. Thank you. So now I'm going to talk about existing biological environment.
So now chapter 6 is about existing biological environment. All the basic information was statistically tested and presented in maps, figures, and tables. The basic existing biological information of the study area cover 4 biological and ecological groups. Details of each ecological and biological groups are terrestrial and riparian flora or vegetation, and terrestrial fauna or wildlife, aquatic fauna, and general ecological environment of streams expected to be affected by the project. So moving on to terrestrial and riparian flora or vegetation. As for this project, the flora survey or conduct in 6 sites, and the methods adopted for the flora survey consist of both sampling plots and general observation of the study sites. For the resulting discussion includes floristic overview of the whole area. The area surveyed were within the Tempat Forest Reserve. In general, the forest floor was densely covered by 80% of herbaceous vegetation, seedlings, and ferns, and the semi-aquatic and aquatic plants were noted in most streams. The area survey were within the Tempat Forest Reserve, including the Sungai Terengganu Mati, Sungai Kura, Sungai Limbang, Sungai Poa, and Sungai Tempat. So moving on to the next one is terrestrial fauna. The terrestrial mammals. In this section, terrestrial mammals considered were of those large, medium, and small terrestrial species. Large mammals were surveyed for 7 days and nights. For the study of small mammals, trapping and field observation methods were used. For the findings, 28 large and medium species and 22 species mammals were recorded in 2 major catchments. Next one is terrestrial fauna bats. For the study of bats, field trapping was required using hawk traps and mist nets. And from the compilation, 43 species of bats were recorded. Next is terrestrial fauna, birds. So, bird survey were made at several sites within inundated and catchment areas, as well as observation and netting were made. For the compilation, 285 species comprising 47 families were recorded from these 2 catchments. Next, it's about herpetofauna. fauna. Herpetofauna includes amphibian and reptilian. So the total number of herpetofauna recorded in Terengganu is 302 individuals from 65 species. So next one is aquatic fish. The study areas are Sungai Tempat and Sungai Terengganu, and the total number of fish in the present study is 36 species from 10 families. So the last one for this chapter is phytoplankton. Phytoplankton is among the most important biological indicator for water quality estimation. So the typical plankton that was used to collect plankton, a number of species for all sampling sites range from 14 to 23 species,
and total individual range from 44 to 59 individuals.
Okay, that's all for me. Thank you. So now I'm going to talk about the existing human environment in this study.
In Chapter 7, Existing Human Environment, I'm going to talk about the aspect of socio-economic, culture, public health status, and ecotourism in the existing area. So, we have built two sets of questionnaire. Questionnaire set A is including the demographic info, and questionnaire set B, perception on proposed development of dams. So there are a total of 308 respondents which participated in the survey, made up of two groups or mukim, namely Terengganu and Hulu Telemong, from 7 villages and included government bodies and NGOs. So first, demographic info we obtained from the survey is, for public health, there are basically a good supply of basic amenities in the area such as electrical supply, network coverage, education system, and transport system. Besides, they also have good pipe water system and proper solid waste disposal management system around that area. However, during the parasitological survey, it is found that 20 species of mosquitoes appears around the area of Kenyir. However, the species that cause dengue fever, which is Aedes aegypti, is absent at the area. Next, these are the existing economic activities available to local communities. They are mainly doing on tourism, boat operation, and fisheries, and only a few of them will be working on construction, agriculture, and others. Next, this is the current ecotourism activities in the Kenyir area. Due to the rich in resources, it provides a beautiful scenery for tourism, such as mountain view, forest cover, natural lakes, and islands. While for the facilities and activities available at Kenyir, it includes fishing, camping, boat riding, canoeing, jungle trekking, and caving. So these are the activities they can be provided to the tourists when they come to Kenyir. Next, I'm going to talk about the perception on proposed development of dams. So based on the survey, this table shows that the anticipated benefits of the project as perceived by the villagers. First, 70% of them say yes that this construction of dam creates job, and then 47.5% of them says the project of the dam will develop tourism, and so on. Next, this table shows the anticipated adverse effects according to the representative of agencies. So the agencies responded that there will be 74.2% of agencies says that this project of dam will going to affect the flora and fauna, followed by affecting wildlife, causing water pollution, dangers to villagers, hunting activities, agricultural activities, causing pollution and problems, so on. So in conclusion, although the benefits and anticipated adverse effect by the Kenyir Dam project, this is the summary of perception of respondents towards the existing Kenyir Dam project. A total of people, 162 people agree on the project and 21 totally agree. So we can say that majority of respondents agree on the Kenyir project. That's all from me. Thank you.
The hydrodynamic and water quality modeling. To achieve the set objective, this study sets the process for modeling as follows. Determination of dominant physical process and dominant spatial and temporal scales, selection of model and model calibration and verification, and use of model to forecast water quality status. So moving on. The model description. The model possesses the capability of routing the following water quality constituents that are not non-conservative constituents and conservative constituents. So next is model conceptualizing. There are 3 submodels used, which are hydraulic quality submodels, hydraulic submodels, coefficient submodels. These submodels interact together with the main model to stimulate the water quality parameters. Hydraulic parameters for each reach at Sungai Terengganu are prepared in the paperwork. So moving on, the model calibration and validation. The procedure of model formulation can be discussed under 2 main categories: hydraulics and water qualities. For stimulation 1, the impact of logging activity on water quality. In stimulation 1, water quality prediction due to logging activities within the Sungai Terengganu and Sungai Tempat catchments are obtained. So for the next one, stimulation 2, the impact of proposed Tempat and Puar dams on the downstream water quality. Stimulation 2 involves water quality prediction during dam construction and operation for the river stretches of Sungai Terengganu and Sungai Tempat downstream of the dam. The prediction of the impact of the proposed dam on water quality at downstream of the structure will also be considered under the following scenarios. First one is modeling the current scenario on low flow and high flow water quality, and modeling the worst case scenario under the construction period on low flow and high flow water quality concentration. And the last one is modeling the water quality concentration by maintaining downstream flow regulation of 1 meter cube per second for Sungai Terengganu and 0.5 meter cube per second for Sungai Tempat. So the last one is EFA requirement. Detailed impacts on water quality and water level at downstream sites of the proposed dams can be found in the paperwork.
And that's all from me. Thank you.
So I will discuss about the potential and residual impacts.
So the first part is land use. During pre-construction stage, some support facility will be constructed. Therefore, there will be a little impact on land use. During construction, there will be a permanent land use in Tempat and Puar dams, and part of the forested area will be cleared. And post-construction of them will be replaced with 2 new made permanently, and the natural landscape will be interspersed with man-made structure. So for the geology and geomorphology, during the pre-construction, temporary base camp will be cause some change in physical landform. The construction at the area is affecting the natural morphology of the area. This activity will expose soil surface and lead to rainfall impact, but the potential erosion impact to a water system below due to the presence of 13-meter strip of buffer zone. On the dam construction side, major impact is permanent modification of existing natural hills, and their native vegetation is permanently lost. This will pose safety risk to the workforce present in the area. For the quarrying and blasting, the blasting activity may induce a local microseismicity and may affect the workforce safety and health. For the inundation of the reservoir, the impact of the reservoir will be due to the increase of water volume and weight. For the demobilization, the impact is due to the environment of equipment out of the area, which is able to generate vibration. For the post-construction, the dam commissioning and reservoir usage, the dam structure is designed to be able to stand the operation basic earthquake without significance. For the structure stability tunnel, based on the low sediment yield of Sungai Tempat, it is expected that the diversion tunnel can be slightly impacted by sedimentation. For the seepage, if the method of the construction is properly decided and negotiated and sufficient mitigation measurements are adopted during the construction, the occurrence of seepage can be avoided. For the earthquake, there are no known active or capable fault within the reservoir and neither any major limestone formation. Therefore, the potential for reservoir-induced seismicity can be considered low. Soil and soil erosion. During this phase of development, construction of the marine base can will cause some change in physical landform. The earthwork, diversion tunnel dam construction makes the soil more erodible. Fortunately, during the operation of dam, the low sediment yield damage and deterioration of water quality. For the climate, but no significant change to the local climate are expected. During the construction of dam, development of future reservoir will act as a potential evaporating surface that decreases the surface temperature. It may a significant impact of local climate. They are not likely to cause a variation in drought and flood scenario. During the operation of dam, there are no significant change to the local climate is expected. For the surface water hydrology, the hydroelectrical impact associated with this activity are expected to be minor, since no work such as flow diversion or construction of in-stream barrier will be carried out during the pre-construction stage, so the stream flow is not expected to change. The activity are expected to cause impact on the hydrological flow regime of the area during construction of dam. The construction of dam will require a river diversion, which alert the natural flow of the Sungai Terengganu and Sungai Tuba. The improper design of diversion in terms of size, depth, as well as element can hinder the flow of diverted water. Inadequate size of diversion channel can lead to higher flow, especially during rainy season, and this could lead to more erosion of the diversion channel. The impact of surface water hydrology during the operation of dam shall be the reduction in water flow at water level. The operation of the dam may adversely affect recreation and fishing activity at the Tempat waterfall because of reduced water flow. So for the water quality, one of the consequences of site cleaning of base camp is soil erosion by surface runoff rainy days. Indiscriminate sanitation waste disposal can cause contamination of surface water quality. However, the impact can be considered minimal. But during the diesel and hydraulic fluid may leak from the machine to the ground, and a leakage of fluid could be transported by surface runoff to the water body. During construction, the machine surveying and maintenance area, construction of solid waste and sewage depots. This activity may affect the water quality and cause a significant water quality deterioration. For the post-construction, the river flows downstream of the Sungai Terengganu and Sungai Tempat dams will be regulated to meet the environmental flow requirements. For the air quality, There are no significant impact to existing air quality are expected at pre-construction stage. However, the anticipated impacts are thus generated from occurring vesting of construction activity. The occurring activity would generate the emission of PM10 and TSP on the occurring area and along the whole road. So for the post-construction, there are no significant impact to existing air quality are expected. For the noise part, there are significant impact to existing noise level are expected at pre-construction stage. During the site cleaning and earthwork, the usage of heavy construction vehicles may increase the existing noise level. A power plant will only be temporary. Therefore, the noise generated by construction work may only cause the short-term impact. For the post-construction, it is anticipated that there will be a frequency of heavy vehicle and long trailer for carrying the construction space. As a result, the existing noise level at the surrounding area along the road, especially through residential areas. Lastly, the residual impact. Residual impact can be generally be defined as those impacts that cannot be fully mitigated and thus will still remain during the lifetime of the project. For permanent land use change and destruction of man-made structure. Prior to development, the project area is a first reserve. Natural vegetation will be replaced by water body and building structure. These changes will reduce the capacity of the area as a carbon sink. Man-made structure will also permanently change the visual setting of the area, with the consequence of impact of natural existence. The existing landform of the area will also be under to accommodate project design and construction requirements. The change in landform will change the existing land profile of the area from its natural condition. For the loss of habitat, the removal of forest cover and motor inundation will lead to a permanent loss of habitat for wildlife and urban organisms. Wildlife that escape from the inunded area will migrate to other parts of the smaller forest reserve. At the same time, the aquatic habitat of marine organisms within the inundated area will be replaced by a lake environment. The loss of forest area also reduces its productive function of the area, such as a source of timber. Timber that could be extracted from the area will also be permanently reduced. The function of forest as a carbon sink will also be lost. For the change in hydrology, the hydrology of the area will also be permanently affected as a result of project development. Apart from the loss in marine habitat within the inundated area, the change in hydrological regime for the 4 km stretch of Sungai Tempat and 3.8 km portion of Sungai Terengganu downstream of the dam will also be permanently alerted. The river flow will no longer fluctuate with the turn of wet and dry season, thus affecting the riverine habitat and flora by the river edge. But the riverine habitat will never be the same again. Some species that are more adapted to the new hydrological regime will flourish, while those that are not so well adapted will experience a fall in population. In the long run, the species composition and abundance of riverine habitat will be altered. Lastly, for the loss of area with tourism and degradation value, the reduction in water flows downstream of dams in the Sungai Tempat will affect the recreational value of some stretches along the river, including the Tempat Pebble.
That's all from me, thank you.
So I will discuss about the mitigation measure for this project.
So I will be discuss about the mitigation measure during pre-construction of dam. Mitigation measure for land use during pre-construction stage. Base camp and other ancillary facilities must be planned to minimize the removal of natural cover. Existing local camps can be reused as base camps during the pre-construction stage. As much as possible, the existing logging tracks should be used as access road. Water quality also needs to mitigate during this stage. Hence, for longer periods of site survey and soil investigation activities, construction of pit toilets is recommended. Non-biodegradable solid waste from the camps must be taken out from the sites for disposal at the nearest dumping site. Terrestrial flora and wildlife will be affected due to the presence of workers. Illegal hunting should be reduced or prevented by educating all field staffs of the importance of wildlife conservation. Next will be fish community. Workers must be briefed that they must not engage in illegal fishing. They must also be adequately supervised so that they will not take part in this illegal activity. If new access tracks need to be constructed, the alignment must be kept 20 meters away from permanent watercourses. The activities carried out that will affect benthos breathing and feeding ability and phytoplankton photosynthesis should mitigate by constructing the base camp at least 50 meters away from the river bank. Workers should use sandy substrates or sandbar area for bathing since these substrates support lower diversity. The use of salt and washing reagent must be minimized, and the solid and non-dosmetic waste such as plastic, paperwood-based waste should be collected and taken out for disposal at nearby dump site. If possible, the survey team should employ local laborers as line cutters and survey assistants. Workers must be briefed that they must not engage in illegal hunting, poaching, and harvesting of valuable forest procedure. Next will be mitigation measure during construction and impoundment. To minimize the impact on slope stability, the construction should strictly follow the design specification. Blasting should be planned to ensure workers' safety and should take place at designated times. Inundation of the areas behind the dam should be engineered and controlled. Mulching should be applied to prevent direct impact of rainfall. Monitoring program for TSS level at the discharges point must be implemented also. The impact on land use will be permanent, so no mitigating measures are required. It is suggested that permanent weather stations must be established to monitor continuously climate parameters such as rainfall, evaporation, wind characteristics, and etc. Combining data with other permanent future stations at upstream sites may help provide accurate description of climate characteristics of the upper Terengganu basin, especially the water balance of the catchment, design rainfall runoff, and evapotranspiration. Erosion control plans must be prepared and implemented for both Puah and Tempat dam sites for surface water hydrology. The diversion channel should be designed properly by taking into account the maximum capacity of the diverted channel to ensure reduction water velocity. For water quality, a proper design and sufficient capacity of sewage facilities must be installed.
Effluent water and runoff from the batching plants should be collected and treated. The noise impact from this activity can be minimized by implementing periodic flow of vehicles, which will minimize the propagation of noise and subsequently reduce the impact. It is also recommended that all heavy vehicles must be checked for proper installation of engine silencer to reduce the emitted noise level. And no specific mitigation measure is required for site clearing and earthworks. And for wildlife, an unnecessary opening, cutting, and land clearing should be avoided. Choosing the right alignment for new routes is also required, and any open areas need to be rehabilitated to prevent erosion. And also, hunting of endangered species is prohibited. Law enforcement required, such as perhilitan, to monitor workers at the work areas. And for fish community, a proper sewage facilities should be designed and constructed to cater for domestic waste. Systematic and properly supervised garbage collection and disposal services should be established. Lastly, the workers need to be educated that the illegal fishing is prohibited. This chapter will describe the mitigation measures of various activities associated with the operation of the proposed project on the various environmental components. Ecotourism is actually a form of tourism involving visiting fragile and relatively undisturbed natural areas. So the location appropriate for resorts and chalets development should be identified so that some form of control can be instituted. For public health, health education programs on the importance of environmental sanitation and personal hygiene should be carried out regularly. The breeding sites for dengue mosquito species is eliminated, and any livestock scrolling in the zone of influence need to be monitored closely for mosquitoes. River flow downstream of the Puah and Tembak dams must be regulated according to the recommended discharge as stated above. Only surface water must be released for maintaining minimum flow to ensure good quality water.
That's all from me. Thank you for your attention.
So I'll be explaining on risk assessment.
A risk assessment study on the proposed construction of dam in Tasik Kenyir is made to determine quantitatively the risk caused to the population in that area where the project is to be implemented. The process of estimating the risk posed by the construction of proposed dam are these following steps and will be further explained in detail. First is the hazard identification. For the case of a large dam, the risk arises because of uncontrolled release of a large amount of water that has been held back in the reservoir. Such a release can cause fatalities downstream of the dam. Next is the identification of causing hazards. It will be done by consequences analysis and also probability analysis. As for consequences analysis, the purpose of consequences analysis is to determine how far the location of an occurrence, a hazard, can have an adverse effect on the populations. For example, area downstream of the dam where facility can occur due to occurrence of a dam break are determined by mathematical modeling and simulations. The consequences of a dam break is flooding downstream, and the analysis is only limited at the downstream section of the proposed area of Tasik Kenyir. Next is the probability analysis. The probability of occurrence of a dam break is determined from the FTA, which is the fault tree assessment of the hazard using simple rounds of probabilities. In order for the probability to be evaluated, the probability of the casual event of the hazard have to be first determined. Such probabilities value are obtained from failure frequency data of equipment and human area rates from prescribed human activities published in industrial failure rate databases. Based on the FTA, the probability of a dam break was evaluated to be 4.46 times 10 to the power of -5 per year. And the risk estimation, the hazard zone are combined with the probability of occurrence of the dam break in order to calculate the risk to an individual that may be exposed to the hazard. The individual risk value can be plotted on population distribution maps to produce what is called as the risk zone due to the hazard. Next is the risk evaluation. The plotted risk zone in the risk estimation will indicate whether or not any person in the residential area downstream of the proposed dam will be exposed to unacceptable high risk value. The individual risk value can be compared with the risk associated with the operation of the proposed project. And lastly, the risk management. With the aid of calculated risk indicator early on, further risk reduction measure can be recommended. Such risk reduction measure can be done in the form of additional of hazard identification, changes in operating procedure, and also increased population exclusion zones. Next, I will proceed on with the environmental economy analysis. The Hulu Terengganu hydropower development is proposed by TNB Tenaga Nasional Berhad for the purpose of strengthening energy supply capacity for daytime peak demand in Malaysia. A review and ranking of potential hydroelectric projects in Malaysia. Based on this study's standardization criteria for peak supply project ranking, FSL 290 was tentatively selected for the Hulu Terengganu project. TNB proposed that FSL 296 to be installed as it has an installed capacity of 300 megawatt and it can be operated for 4 hours per day and 7 days a week. Based on the name, it will have the height of 296 meters. However, the suggested model will be used is the FSL 290. It will have an installed capacity of 212 megawatt and it will be operated for 6 hours a day and 6 days a week, and it will have the height of 290 meters. In a year, it will generate a total of 405 gigawatt and will cost around 856 million. Next is the option available for peaking supply in Malaysia are either thermal or hydroelectric power station. The OCGT plants, which is also known as the open cycle gas turbine, are the most likely thermal alternative for peaking supply. Among the potential significant benefits of thermal plants in that they can be situated based on consideration of field logistic, power transmission, and suitable distance from human settlement with respect to air pollution. OCGT plants are relatively cheaper to build than hydroelectric projects, but the operation is comparably costly because the fuel must be purchased and the maintenance is high. The average lifespan of a thermal plant is typically 20 years, and environmentally, thermal plants have the benefit they do not normally cause major loss of habitat and biological diversity, but air pollution can be significant, and today emission of greenhouse gases is a major concern. So without further ado, let's get straight into the affected environmental economy. The first is the timber and forest. The clear felling on the catchment area should be managed on a sustainable basis. If the proposed hydroelectric project is to be implemented, and thus an additional of 38 km square of reservoir area has to be clear felled, and the sum of timber revenue from clear felling will reach 248.7 million. This will exceed the expected revenue which is also the maximum sustainable revenue for the catchment area, excluding the dam. Thus, depending on verification of the extent of the non-production area, the total value of clear felling benefits may exceed the cost of residual catchment conservation. When biodiversity and carbon balance are considered, the balance for catchment conservation is further strengthened. Catchment conservation is also in the interest of the project proponent since it gives hydrological benefits and prevent high operation and maintenance costs associated with the heavy soil erosion. The issue, however, depends on the Terengganu state government, who holds the jurisdiction over the forestry resources. Next is the greenhouse gases and also the carbon balance. Malaysia has signed Kyoto Protocol on 12th of March 1999 and ratified it on the 4th of September 2002. Malaysian National Climate Committee was formed in January 1994 under the aegis of Ministry of Science, Technology and the Environment to coordinate all activities in the country related to the climate change. We will be comparing two power stations, which is the hydroelectric power station and also the thermal power station. In hydroelectric power stations, it will affect the carbon via several mechanisms. And after clear felling and the submerge of the rainforest, the decay of organic matter will produce methane. As for the thermal power station, it will produce carbon dioxide by burning fossil fuel. The process involves high temperature and also pressure. It has a shorter physical lifespan, which is 20 years. However, methane produced from hydroelectric is 84 times more effective greenhouse gases than carbon dioxide. Biodiversity in Malaysia. Malaysia is one of the world's 12 so-called mega biodiversity countries, as highlighted by the Malaysian Ministry of Natural Resource and Environment (NRE). Its high biodiversity is one of Malaysia's foremost assets for the future, a fact recognized by the Malaysian government and incorporated into current conversation and economic policy. The National Policy on Biological Diversity, launched in 1998, made clear the national goals to conserve Malaysia's biological diversity and to ensure that its components are utilized in a sustainable manner for the continued progress and socio-economic development of the country, and to transform Malaysia into a world center of excellence in conservation, research and utilization of tropical biological diversity by the year of 2020. Species relationship, habitat fragmentation effect, habitat quality effect, and also cumulative impacts. The first one is the area-species relationship. Biodiversity is a fundamental correlate of area. Large areas means there's more species compared to the smaller areas. When the habitat area is reduced, biodiversity drops. A non-linear regression technique are used to fit species accumulation curve to the sample data. The resulting curves are usually plot of mean cumulative number species as a function of the number of sample rather than as function of area, yet give indication of the exhaustiveness of sampling and the spatial distribution of in terms of potential impact of area loss. Next is the habitat fragmentation effect. Habitat fragmentation means that the area loss or changes occur in such a way the organism dispersal become problematic. The level of fragmentation depends on species dispersal capacity. Species with great dispersal capacities may experience the habitat as patchy, yet move easily between patches, while less motile species will experience the habitat as total isolated. Next is the habitat quality effect. Habitat in good condition support higher density of individuals and species than degraded habitats. Quality loss, for example, due to forestry activities, pollution, hunting and poaching of animals, are associated with loss of biodiversity. And lastly, cumulative impact. Development that occur in area already impacted by previous environmental changes can have unexpected and disproportionately severe impact if cumulative impact are not considered. Also, combined effect of area loss, fragmentation, and habitat degradation should be considered in a regional and national context. Next, we'll be discussing on the water supply. The Hulu Terengganu Hydroelectric project involves reservoir storage of water and it will affect on downstream flow patterns. The benefits to the society that might arise from this is the improvement of water supply during the dry season and potential flood-related avoidance during the monsoon season. Both are by natural indirect use value or option values if they are expected to occur at some later point in the future. However, water quality costs have not been considered in relation of water supply here. Because the outflow of the project area will discharge directly into the Kenyir Reservoir, water quality downstream of the Kenyir Dam will continue to be a result of process in the very large Kenyir Lake. However, there might be significant costs due to reduced water quality. This issue is relevant to the residual flow in the diverted rivers, as well as the water quality in the two relevant recipients region of Kenyir Lake. The potential impacts on fishery and tourism of water diversion of quality change are dealt with qualitatively in the respective chapter. The potential cost of poor water quality and changed lake conditions of the Kenyir Reservoir should give closer scrutiny. The new highway skirts precisely this area should mark lake quality developed in the Kenyir Lake along the new highway. This may have opportunity cost in terms of benefit from the highway not materializing, as well as posing a threat of damage to established tourism and lake fishing. Reservoir tourism in the Kenyir Lake area has shown poor performance, illustrated by the low occupancy rates and several bankruptcies. Based on available experience, reservoir tourism in Malaysia are showing mixed performance. The proposed establishment of the two new reservoirs west of the Kenyir Lake is one of the most remote forest areas in Malaysia, and it can bring both positive and negative effect. As for the positive effect, it will provide infrastructure benefit from accessing roads and the lakes, which make the remaining catchment forest more reachable as a recreational destination. However, the negative impact could follow from the rapid loss of waterfalls, river, water quality, loss of habitat, biological diversity, and other significant environment impact associated with tropical dam. To sum it all, the current tourism to the north section of the lake is motivated by the kela fishing and rapid visit to the waterfall that will be adversely impacted by the new dam. The local reports have low occupancy rate and are not economically robust and may thus be at considerable disadvantage from the proposed project. At the moment, there is no firm assessment can be made regarding the likelihood of development of new resort near the proposed dam. Such development is more likely to be attributed to new roads than to the two new proposed reservoirs and will not consider here. Next, we will be discussing on the rural economy. The Tembak and Pua River plays an important role as breeding ground for fish that can be caught in the northern Kenyir Lake. Another function of this river is that they supply large amount of allocates matter, which is also known as external food supply. From the catchment forest into the barren reservoir, the ideal that tropical reservoirs sustain higher productivity of fish than tropical river is one of the greatest misunderstandings in fish ecology. The bulk of tropical freshwater fish feeds on forest litter and not plankton or the lake plankton, simply cannot compete with the tonnage of input that the forest trees provide in the form of insect, leaf, fruits, seeds, and so forth. the construction of the Poa and Tembak Dam will cut the input of forest litter for a 51.1 kilometer square catchment that today flows into the Kenyir Lake, and this will have effect on fish biomass in the northern part of the Kenyir Lake. Whether this productivity will be lost or shifted to the new reservoir depends heavily on the water quality in the new proposed reservoir, assuming that the proposed new reservoir will have surface water of equivalent quality of that of Kenyir Lake. The sum of long-term post-impoundment fish yield is in Poa and Kenyir Lake alone. Evaluation of the Orang Asli economy. The Simok Berry community living in the vicinity of the proposed project area utilizes the Poa and Tembak catchment as roaming area for hunting and collection of non-timber forest product. No complete census has been taken of the community. However, it will be assumed that the count of 48 families remains a close estimate of the relevant community. The detail of the economy in the area are very poorly known. More in-depth results from the survey will be updated later on. Since there's so little is known about the community in the area, a compensation is the worst case scenario should be drawn, based on the impact level against the gross national income per capita for Malaysian workforce. Cost-benefit analysis. It will be divided into three major parts, which is the cost-effective approach, sensitivity analysis, and also distribution analysis. Cost-effective approach. Recognizing that environmental and social costs and benefits are rarely, if ever, as accurate measure as anticipated economic gain for the developer, and recognizing that there are cases where a solution to a pressing national problem will be implemented in one form or another, for example thermal or hydroelectric supply or critical needed peaking supply electricity. A cost-effective approach is useful for ranking and selecting solution and in turn optimizing the chosen solution. As for the sensitivity analysis, several aspects of sensitivity analysis have been covered in the various report section as different case scenario, assuming different level of impact and using different economic assumptions. The purpose of sensitivity analysis is to explore the effect of different scenario on overall project balance. And the last one is the distributional analysis. The purpose of distributional analysis is to break down costs and benefits by the stakeholders, to identify potential loser and gainer from a proposed project, so that adequate measure for damage prevention or compensation may be taken.
That's all, thank you.
So the part that will emphasized by me would be the Environmental Management Plan, or the short form EMP. So let's start with some intro of EMP. This chapter gives the detailed description and assessment of project activities and their potential environmental impacts, which requires a systematic and effective approach to mitigate the negative impacts of the project. An EMP is prepared in order to achieve this aim, and it represents an action plan containing the necessary arrangements, procedures, steps and measures to achieve environmental protection, pollution control, regulatory compliance, and also enhancement of the environmental performance of the project. It also provides an implementation strategy for environmental management and continuous assessment of the effectiveness of the EMP. So the Environmental Quality Amendment Act 1996, Act 1953 was gazetted on the 1st April of 1996 to ensure further improvement in the role of EMP in an EIA process. For the parties that involved in EMP will be TMB, all contractors and subcontractors engaged in project implementation. Function of TMB will be ensure that all stakeholders are fully aware of and understand the environmental, legal and regulatory requirements pertaining to development of this project. TMP also responsible to carry out the environmental monitoring programs for the activities related to the construction and operation of the proposed Tembat and Pua dams, as well as the clearing of 6.13 hectares forest, while the contractors holding responsible to carry out environmental monitoring programs for the rest of the logging area, which are the catchment areas of 12,620 hectares. Continue would be the objectives of EMP, as you could see, to determining appropriate standards and procedures, thus minimizing impacts to the environment by listing out key environmental aspects, providing environmental requirements, compliance standards and procedures, and lastly assigning responsibilities for the management of environmental qualities at the project site. Next up would continue with the organizational structure. In an EMP, an organization is required to ensure successful for the implementation of the EMP. Thus, a management of Hulu Terengganu Hydroelectric Project Environmental Management Unit, short form would be HDHEMU, needs to be formed to oversee the implementation of the environmental work recommended in the EIA and EMP. So, it shall serve two main functions: to determine the appropriate personnel and also to delegating tasks to the relevant contractors and consultants. Since it is an organizational structure, there must be the structure for it. So basically consists of three main groups: project proponents, representatives, the main contractor and subcontractors, and also the environmental consultants and or their representatives. Follow will be the environmental performance indicators. The key objective of EMP is to ensure that all environmental EPI are in compliance with the targeted compliance and of environmental law, regulations, standards, and desirable environmental outcomes. Due to time constraint, here just a glance through for the table that lists out the EPI completely. There are three sections: performance indicator, objectives, and target compliance criteria. For more complete look, please refer to sections 14.6 in the table 14.6.1 on our detailed EIA report. Followed by environmental monitoring and surveillance plan and procedures. This is formulated to monitor direct and indirect changes resulting from the construction and operation of the project, and also ensuring that environment is not unduly degraded and worse off than the existing conditions. So the details of monitoring, including the parameters to be monitored for various environmental components, frequency of monitoring, and also the time scale, are indicated in table 14.9.1. Please refer to detailed EIA report for more complete look in the section 14.9. While under this section, there are two main subs, which is to report and to submit. For reporting, these are the components, while for submission, the monitoring report needs to be submitted by the appointed independent consultant to the project proponent monthly or to DOE quarterly. Next, to tabulate the results of monitoring and surveillance work. So the results of from the environmental monitoring and surveillance shall be cross-referenced with the baseline data obtained prior to the commencement of the project and the EIA approval conditions. Lastly, sufficient copies, hard copy of the environmental monitoring report need to be submitted quarterly or yearly and shall be prepared and submitted to the relevant authorities as required. Next would be another big part in the EMP, which is the wildlife evacuation plan. So during the reservoir filling, wildlife are stranded because of the rapid rise of water levels. Therefore, wildlife need to be evacuated. If not, the rapid increase of water will result in mass drowning of the wildlife. Evacuation plan is seriously crucial to transfer wildlife of many sizes to safe place and so that can be easily transported within a short period of time. Noted that evacuation plan should be implemented as a last resort if other options fail. So what are the other options? First is to design of the gradual reservoir filling, which allows wildlife to escape from the inundation areas. Second, at the same time during dam filling, all dam reservoirs need to be monitored and inspected for any displaced or trapped wildlife. Third would be, if required, the displaced wildlife need to be guided to the safe ground before water levels reaches the critical stages. If 1, 2, and 3, all three failed, only that wildlife evacuation plan needs to be considered. So the proposed evacuation plan are as follows. The first will be preparation of transportation, next followed by the capture of trapped wildlife. The third evacuation plan could be transportation and translocation. Next, you need to release them, and after release them, monitoring work need to be done for at least few hours after release. Continue with another big section of EMP, which is the water catchment management plan. So forested water catchment area typically implies a specific forest area from which all water received drains into the same river system, and the area is predominantly of sloping area. The presence of forests on slopes protects the quality and yield of water supply for the reservoir. Apart from providing quality water, forest lining water courses also provide food and shelter for freshwater fish. So the state government of Terengganu has decided to extract timbers within the proposed catchment areas of 12,620 hectares as mentioned in Chapter 8. It is again should be stressed that sustainable logging using the Selective Management System SMS or reduced impact logging is especially important. So this tool would ensure the sustainability of the proposed dam will be long-lasting. It is also recommended that the forests of the catchment area should be gated as protection forests for water catchment after the timber extraction. Thereby, no second rotation of logging will be allowed. The standard reduced impact logging will be discussed in detail for the following subsequent sections. So, for the potential production areas of the water catchment, there will be most forest areas of the Puah and Tembat, where they are approved by the state government of Terengganu, with strict adherence to National Forestry Acts and National Forest Policy. There should be no logging activities on the 1000 meter above sea levels or the slopes steeper than 40 degrees Celsius. The same is true for the riparian zones and areas of unique habitats. So table 14.11.1 and 11.2 show the logging history, some of the forests within the catchment area as here. Logging history here is based on the field observation, but again, due to the lack of time, please kindly refer this table at the section 14.11. The possible impacts on the catchment areas would be the soil compaction, piling of soil and rocks covering topsoil, soil erosion and moving, loss of certain flora species within the logging concessionaires. Heavy machinery will cause soil compaction and may retard the growth of natural regeneration of timber trees. And lastly, suspended solids loads in river may increase significantly, especially on the upper part of catchment. The more suspended solids enter rivers to be deposited downstream. Thus, management of impacts for production forests of catchment areas is really important. By following the details, forest damage are reported to reduce as follows. So for the timber extraction procedures, it mainly divided into the pre-harvesting operations, and before into the pre-harvesting operations, into the harvesting operations, and lastly the post-harvesting operation. For the pre-harvesting operations, the main objective is to collect the biophysical data. Map should be scaled of 1 to 5,000. Operations include these. While before entering the harvesting operations, these assessments should be carried out. And the important one should be accordance with the MS ISO 9002 1994 document Pemantauan dan Pengawalan Penghasilan Hutan PK Hutan Usaha Hasil 02 Lampiran 8. So when get into the harvesting operations, construction of feeder roads, preparation of skid trails, construction of log landings, temporary and also logging camps, felling operation and winching and skiding should be implemented. The post-harvesting operation also includes as here. So we shall get into the new section, what is the last main subsections for the EMP, which is the emergency response plan. So emergency is something unplanned event that can cause death or injuries, and therefore ERP is crucial to address the predictable and preparedness of the organization for the unpredictable. Objectives of EIP would be protect human life, prevent minimization of injury, reduce the asset of environmental exposure, optimize loss control, and of course restore normal operations quickly. Acquisition of ERP now can be referred as Environmental Response Program and can be done by the formation of ERP group. Here the figure 13.1 show the Emergency Management Group organization. The program is based on the requirements or general intent of the following documents. So all these documents are referred before this Emergency Management Group pointed out. For the implementation of ERP, first is to integrate the emergency response plan into the company operations and also the employee training. Emergency response planning must become part of the corporate culture. Supports from top management are needed to build awareness, educate and train personnel to test procedures, and also to involve all levels of management. While training could be provided in the form of orientation, walkthrough drill, evacuation drill, tabletop exercise, function drill, and also full-scale exercise. So these are all the parts for the EMP. Next, we should continue with the conclusion. In conclusion, the proposed project is a hydroelectric generating project located at the north of existing Kenyir Dam in Kuala Berang, Daerah Hulu Terengganu, Negeri Terengganu Darul Iman. It is about 59 km from Bandar Gua Musang Hulu Terengganu roadway and about 65 km west of Kuala Terengganu. The proposed project comprises of two storage reservoirs, namely the Puar Reservoir and Tembat Reservoir, with surface area of 60 km square and also 1.3 km square respectively. Also, there are two dams, 78 meters at the upper Sungai Terengganu Mati, just downstream is confluence with Sungai Puar, and also a 30-meter high roller compacted concrete RCC dam on Sungai Tembat. As underground, there are powerhouse with 212 megawatts installed capacity, a diversion dam on the adjacent Sungai Tembat, and a short diversion tunnel between the Tembat and Puar reservoirs. For the most part, the environmental impacts of the project can be mitigated by taking appropriate measures as outlined in the report. The environmental impacts for the proposed project can be further minimized by adopting several approaches, including catchment management plan and also the environmental monitoring program. The latter will allow for measures to be taken in order to protect the environment in a timely manner. Thus, it is extremely important that this project can be carried out in full compliance with the DOE, Department of Environmental, and also all Malaysian requirements and regulations. Thus, this shall be the end of our proposed detailed EIA report. Hereby, I would like to express a million thanks from me and also all my colleagues of the environmental consultants for your full attention. So, thank you.
Hi everyone. So nowadays we know that the electricity demand has a growth among peoples that since our population is increasing, so the demand for the electricity is increasing. Therefore, there is a statement of need that why we need to build up a new energy resources which is renewable and sustainable and environmental friendly. So now we are going to talk about the statement of need of building up this power plant. So, for example, hydroelectricity is one of the power plant which is very environmental friendly as it is very utilized, it's secure, cost effective, and it minimizes the adverse effect towards the human and the environment. So, This is why we need to have a new power plant. So first thing is that it needs to meet the peak power demand, and it needs to be a reliable fuel source, and it has to improve the power system security and reduce the carbon emission, which is beneficial to the environment and the human. So the peak power demand we will discuss in the next slide. So now we will discuss about this reliable fuel source. Reliable fuel source means that this power plant and this power supply needs to be readily and available. Means that it is not subjected to the market volatility and availability. Means it has to be consistently and always able to produce the power and energy to the supplement of the human. And the next thing is that it needs to improve the power system security by having a fast startup and a spinning reserve duty. So by that, it could always prevent the blackouts and having a backup plan to produce power to human when there is a peak demand. And the next thing is that it has to be environmental friendly, as now the pollution issue is very concerned by the people, and it is a must to figure out a plan to conduct out a environmental friendly power plant to produce a better power plant supply. So now we are going to further discuss about this peak power demand. So for this peak power demand, it is a combination of two things: the base load and the peaking power loads. So base load is actually conducted under a long duty cycle, which it has a constant load, means that it carry out the duty in the long hour of the day. So for example, this plant is the coal-fired steam plant and the gas-fired combined cycle plant. And for the peaking power load means that it only conduct like certain periods of the day, like a very short period. Like for example, it has a varying load and a very fast startup capability. Means that it can warm up very fast. And for example of this power plant is the open cycle gas turbines and the hydroelectric power plant. So as a peaking power demand supply power plant, there is two choices between them, which is the open cycle gas turbine and the hydroelectric power plant. However, hydroelectric power plant is chosen over the open cycle gas turbine for this project. The reason why is because hydroelectric power plant is more reliable fuel source as it is always readily available. It does not depend on fuel and the cost of fuel. And by the way, it can reduce the carbon emission, which is more environmental friendly because it does not consume any fuel usage. So on the other hand, it also has a relatively low operation and maintenance cost because there is no cost of fuel, and it has a longer life than the fuel-fired generation plant, and it also need a very low labor cost as it is an automated power plant. So that's all for me. Thank you.